So in our fourth season of ALK-tALK, we always kind of try to start it off with some type of a story, interest story of some sort, or a mental health story, or something to give us some type of a bounce at the beginning of the year. And coming off the summit, we realized that we should really start out with uh, Connie and Bill Shoot, and there's the book from Summer. And I really, the person that wrote the introduction, Rhonda Mextra, I've known for a long period of time. And Ron and I spoke back in 2020 about this idea of coming on Zoom with, you know, basically it just started out kind of as a, hey, Rhonda, how do we do this? And we know that Facebook is so strong in our group. And Rhonda is one of the organizers and administrators of our Facebook group. And Rhonda did write the introduction to this great book. And I just want to thank Rhonda for all she's done for ALK-positive and all the time that she's put into it, the multiple hours of being Jeff's caregiver through the years. And so, Rhonda, thank you so much. And I wanted to say you got the mic.
Okay. Bill
So
and
let's
Connie,
start.
I will let you guys know that you're on mute too, so you'll need to unmute Bill and Connie. So, well, I just want to start out by saying that as I was also a member of am still currently a member of the support group, and my husband was diagnosed in 2015. And when I joined the support group, one of the main things that I really wanted to do was to connect with people, just I'm sure the same as you, to be able to learn from others on how to navigate ALK lung cancer, learn from others. And I would really pay attention to people's like introductions and like their stories, and I would start to, build relationships with those that I felt, either lived close to me or might have had, similar diagnosis journey as Jeff and I. And when I came across Bill and Connie's introduction story, I realized, oh my gosh, they live in rural Ohio the same as I do, and they only live at the most maybe 20 minutes from me. And then I recognized at that time that, Bill was probably then very close to double digits of living with, ALK lung cancer. And at the time that I read their introduction was the beginning of Jeff and I's journey. And so probably like many, we were desperate to not only learn information, but we were desperate for hope. We were fearful, living in, anxiety, scared, afraid of death. We just had a doom and gloom. And when I came across Bill and Connie and their story, I just knew that I wanted to be able to meet them face to face. I was hoping that they would, and I wanted Jeff to be able to meet another gentleman that lived close by that had the same lung cancer as him, but also to be able to inspire us. Bill and Connie live a very different mental focus on their lung cancer. They're very positive. They're very healthy. They focus on trying to be as normal as possible, and I just say, I think the title of the book was perfect, because Bill and Connie truly live with lung cancer. And they've been inspiring us. We met with them face to face for the first time in 2017. And it was such a blessing because they became, an ally and a close friend. We get together several times, a year, and invite each other to our homes, and just share therapies, share doctors. We just share a lot of information and a lot of love, and they've been inspiring Jeff and I for many years. And when they approached me about wanting to write a book, I was thrilled, and got to be one of the first ones to read it. And like Mark said, I actually wrote a foreword for it because I believe in the book so much, and I'm so excited that they want to share their philosophy and journey with as many of those people living with lung cancer and ALK as possible. And so I think if you get it, I don't know if any of you have read the book yet. I hope that you do get the book and that you read the book. And I think tonight, while you hear their story, and then again, if you get the book, and the donations, to the book do fund, the nonprofit, the ALK positive research as well. But there's just so many life lessons in the book about not only teamwork, how the two of them, work together. Also the care, the caregiver supporting the survivor. How probably the most powerful thing that I get is how Bill and Connie are their own advocate, and the reason why they're here today on year 16 is because they never gave up fighting. And it's a powerful story of how he was diagnosed with ALK, and that journey, and the connection to having, an ALK specialist on board on their medical team, living in like rural Ohio, clinical trials, and definitely their mental and physical aspect to how they live with lung cancer. That's all the things that you can learn from their story and from their book.
Great job.
Thank you, Rhonda. Go ahead.
Bill and Connie, why don't you take it away and share your story? I'll pull up our slide presentation with the time.
Okay.
Okay, I'm hoping that we get along here, and as I share, I would love to have people, if they have questions, by all means answer them. I'll try to answer them. We're nothing special, that's for sure. I'm 75 years old, and I sit here now very happy that I am here, and the journey has been quite the story. It's been 16 years since I was first diagnosed with terminal lung cancer. And at that time, I was told, you have 6 months to 2 years, and that's it. A little bit hard for me to accept. So I started scrambling and going to different doctors and trying everything, as I'm sure everyone out there listening knows. And basically, I found out that, there on your screen, you can pretty much see I was diagnosed in 2007. And the doctors that I came across, the oncologists, were nice people, good people. They tried, but at that time, they had no idea what they were doing. And
I have to interrupt you too,
okay.
because basically at the beginning where he says he was diagnosed in 2007, he went for a CT scan on his own because the pulmonologists and the doctors told him he didn't need one. The patients they were seeing wished they had his lungs. And so he just wouldn't accept that. And he went for a smoker screening on his own before we went on a vacation to Florida. And that's how we found out.
okay, that's good.
If he had not done that, I don't know where he would be right now.
She mentioned smokers. I never smoked, and that's why it just blew my mind. As I'm sure a lot of you out there, we find out now that most ALK, I believe, are non-smokers. And so that blew my mind when they told me I had stage 4 inoperable lung cancer. I couldn't understand that. So that's when we started talking with oncologists and that. And basically what I just didn't have much luck at all. And what was it when we went to?
As you can see on the screen, he went through several different treatments, the standard of care. His local oncologist here in Ohio researched everything he could find because he just couldn't accept that such a healthy person would be so devastating a disease. So he found a consultant in Indiana. It's Indiana It's Indiana University, Purdue University at Indianapolis. It's a 2-hour drive for us. So that's who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Sent us over there, and we went over there, and it looks like I see what you have up there, 2008 for a consultation. And
But basically, we don't want to go through all of this. We just went through a lot of different chemotherapies, and that's all they had. And
you can see them on the screen.
Yeah.
There's 7 of them.
yeah, that was it brought me to my knees. And I basically, after about 2 years of all these different type of chemotherapies, as you see on the screen there, I was done.
Yeah.
And my story, as I share in my book, I was laying on my couch in my living room, and I was dying, and it's hard to say that you know you're dying, but I couldn't even move. I couldn't even hardly get off the couch. I saw it. I don't want to drag this up,
Next
but
screen, yeah.
okay. There you go. I saw on ABC World News, and I didn't even, wasn't even paying any attention to the newscasts, but they came across, and the words shot out to me. They had a young lady on TV down at a cancer conference with Dr. Al Shaw, I found out later. But this young lady said, and happens to be Linnea, she said, I have adenocarcinoma, non-small cell lung cancer, and it's fading away, or melting away, was her words. And I looked at my wife and I thought, what?
Yeah.
So that started the process of me trying to contact Dr. Shaw, and I did. And Dr. Shaw, if any of you know Dr. Shaw, she's just a remarkable person. She's been my oncologist forever.
Since 2009.
Since 2009. And there she is right there. You're on the ball there. Thank you. Yeah. A wonderful person. She's the world to me, as you can well imagine. And boy, she's led me through a lot of different therapies, because I started off with quercetinum. I think if you have another slide, there you go.
It's on there. 4.5 years.
Yeah, I don't want to bore everyone with all these all this information, but basically I went from quercetinum to, and I had quercetinum that was going good, and all of a sudden what was about in January 14,
Yeah,
where I realized that something wasn't right mentally, and
in 2013, he talked to Dr. Shaw, and she said, we haven't done an MRI for a while. We should check, make sure quercetinum is covering the brain. And that's when it went to the brain in 2013. And so she scheduled you for surgery.
I went in, and I thought I was cooked, to be honest with you. I thought I had met the end of my trip, end of my journey. And I told her that. I said, well, we've had a good run, and I appreciate all your help. He said, Bill, there's something else that we can try. They've got another I don't want to say TKI that you might want to try.
Penetrates the brain.
And I was stunned, because all of this, up until this time, we were told, or I was told, that there's no surgery, there's no radiation, there's nothing. This is all we have is the ALK type of treatment. And boy, she told me, she said, we're going to go in and we're going to take that out of your brain, and we're going to put you on a different clinical trial. And I was one of the first on that clinical trial also.
We were looking at ALKtALK, actually, and we were going to be going, because of the protocol, we were going to try to go to Columbus, Ohio. And he had the brain surgery, recovered from that. But in January 1 of 2014, he ends up with blood clots on the lung. And we end up in the emergency room in Piqua near Rhonda. And he ends up on oxygen. And but we still make it to Columbus a couple weeks later to try out for the ALKtALK trial, which he didn't qualify for, which they had not checked his paperwork. They could have told us a lot sooner. So we waited until we got off of oxygen. You were able to get off of oxygen. So on January 27th, we went back to Boston and joined the brigatinib trial. That's when you joined the brigatinib trial. So,
You know, I just want to interject one thing. We went to the cancer center in Ohio here, James Center in Columbus, Ohio, and it's what highly regarded. And I'm not knocking it at all. It's a wonderful, but that they were one example of the hospitals, they just didn't know all these drugs coming through yet. And we were so fortunate. Again, I called Dr. Shaw and said, you know, he was asking me more questions than he was giving out. And they really didn't have any room for me. They didn't even have anyone in the trial. But anyway, long story short, I went back to Dr. Shaw, and that's when she got me onto this new trial.
brigatinib.
Are we going on too long with just our boring story? Is there something else we need to do, or can we invite other people in?
You are fabulous. No, this is great. But I wanted to bring up something when we chatted the other day. You were talking about, like, and if everybody looks back here, actually some of these drugs here, like you were started on an EGFR drug, right?
Yeah.
Like twice you were on that.
Yeah.
And Dr. Alice Shaw is like a major leader in ALK positive, right? And also, you know, she could be known as the godmother of ALK. Linnea too could be her goddaughter. For those of you that don't know Linnea, she has been passed for a few years, but always has been a champion advocate for lung cancer in general, and then also ALK. And the fact that it gives me chills, just appeared on your screen, Bill and Connie, is unbelievable. But again, the theme that I find like incredible is that you stayed with this local oncologist, sent an email, or, you know, but they were trying, right? They had you on chemo, they had you on EGFR drugs, they send you for a consult to Indiana, and then later you email Dr. Shaw, or then fast forward, you progress on crizotinib, right? And they recommend whole brain radiation, and as you said, you were like,
Dr. Shaw.
right?
Yeah.
So but I think it always is a big theme, and we jump all over people in the support group when they say, like, my oncologist says no, they don't want me to go to somebody else, or they recommended this and they don't support whatever. But yours is such an amazing story of a team that didn't know, right? They didn't have the experience, but
Right.
Yeah, she's talking about our local doctor. When he had his MRI, we had it done here, and he was shocked and with the brain mets, and he did want to do whole brain radiation. You're right.
Yeah.
And he absolutely, and when we asked him to call Dr. Shaw and see what she thought, he was really surprised that he got through to her so fast. And he said, there's a new plan. You're going back to Boston. So he was very supportive, but he was stunned. And they always have told us here that they watched the Bill's progression and his treatments, because they get copies of it too, so that they know. And they told us that has changed how they deal with lung cancer here in our area. So
I think worldwide.
Really happy.
Where in this journey, Bill, were you actually, what year was your ALK? When did you actually get recognition and know that was that not until you went to see Dr. Shaw in Boston that you had the biomarker testing that came out for ALK, or?
Absolutely.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
2009.
They started the trial on crizotinib, and the clinical trial crizotinib, and Linnea was on that trial also. I think
she was already in the trial.
She was already in the trial, and maybe she was like the first, second, third person, and I came in right after her, and so everything was really new. But matter of fact, they had to, when they took my sample to see if I would qualify, they had to actually send that out to California.
They had to retest it for some
retest it to make sure. So it was all really new, even at MGH, even though they were one of the leaders. That was obviously very new to them.
Yeah.
And somebody asked, why was it that you didn't qualify for ALKtALK?
That's an interesting story because they told he had prostate cancer. While he was on crizotinib, he was treated for prostate cancer at MGH, Mass General, and they said after we went through everything at Columbus, he came in, or he didn't come in. She came in and told us, well, you have had another cancer. It was in the paperwork that we sent originally, but they hadn't seen it until we were sitting in their office. That's when they saw it.
Yeah.
And they said, you wouldn't, and we asked them to try to get the trial people to allow it anyway because it can be rewritten, but they couldn't do it. They had not even added one patient to their trial, let alone try to put somebody in that had.
And be honest with
Second.
you, at that time, I kind of knew that
Yeah.
I need to get back to Boston,
Right.
because they were much more advanced at that time.
And that's
You
the
know,
whole
I-
thing. Oh, go ahead, Rhonda. Sorry.
I've talked to lots of people, and Jeff and I had this same experience, and it's something, it's a very important part of this story that a lot of times, at a time of progression or somebody's looking at joining, a clinical trial, a lot of times they'll schedule that visit, and then, that sometimes can take a couple of weeks to get that initial visit. But a lot of times you can actually talk with the coordinators and you can find out a lot of these, details, in my opinion. And I've seen this happen over and over and over again. And it did to Jeff and I as well, that had somebody had a conversation, had someone read all of Bill's paperwork that had been submitted for them to come and meet. That was a 2-hour drive for them to go, to Columbus with the expectation that they were going to be starting the process to join a trial. And then once they get there, they're like, oh, wait a minute, you have prostate cancer, you can't join. And now they've got to get in the car and they've got to go back home. And
That's
those are all
correct.
types of things that, we as patients, as caregivers, we can call those clinical trial investigators when someone's referring us to one, and we can find out, and we can look at these things prior to us making, travel arrangements or drive, and find out, what is their eligibility or non-eligibility, requirements. And no one wants to face that, and it happens over and over again that you're already heightened, fear and anxiety, and then go there and learn, it's been, a waste of your time. So it's a very important lesson.
And the other thing too, this shows, it's just staying in the game, right? So many of us now are in that boat of trying to get into Nuvalent. And when it's a phase 1, that it's so much more rigorous and so strict, and they just want to see, is it working with the primary cancer, which is so frustrating and scary. But maybe if had brigatinib not worked, could, somebody said, could you go to alectinib? I mean, it would depend now, if they tested and what the, mutations looked like. But for all of you out there, just staying in the game, whether it's with a chemo reset or something to hold you off till phase 2 can open, or, and there's not so many regulations, but that worked out so great.
That my book starts out like that. Probably the main thing: be your own advocate. That is so important. And I think a lot of people, I don't want to be generalized, but in the Midwest, we have that laid back type of attitude or composition, and we kind of accept certain things. But with cancer, you're dealing with life and death, and you have to be your own advocate, and you have to find the best people and go from there.
I wanted to say too that we're pretty far into the journey here. Bill had been 2 years, almost 2.5 years of horrible standard chemos and experimental chemos to try to do something, plus everything else he did to try to alleviate some of. He had a lot of pain, like pleurisy. That's what his main issue was. His was like little granules of sand. So it was like pleurisy. So after crizotinib, he had an unbelievable recovery from that, off of all pain medications, and it was right away. And so I wanted to say that his quality of life was excellent at this time, even though from crizotinib. So when we were going on to this next trial with the brain mets, he was feeling really good, and he had been through a lot. So he definitely wanted to investigate all possibilities at that time.
That isn't.
Well, I definitely would love for you to tell the group a little bit about, you know, your physical, you know, like even prior to your diagnosis, you know, like your guys's philosophy and like on health and you know, your physical and I guess kind of maybe take us a little bit through to you know, what all you guys have done as far as living with lung cancer during this you know, 16 years.
Say after crizotinib.
Okay, I'll be fairly quick on this. I don't want to bore everyone with, but
Not boring us.
I was able to retire fairly young. I had 30 years in education. I had been a teacher and a coach, and I actually retired as a high school principal. So I was a beaten up warrior, so to speak. So I was ready to get out and travel. And we did that. We did a lot of traveling. And when I started really finding out that I had cancer, that was really a blow to my hopes and dreams of travel and all that. And then to come across crizotinib and Dr. Shaw especially, and find out that there was life beyond this cancer death sentence. I told my wife, I said, hang on, we're going to travel now. And that we have. We've gone to all 63 national parks. We've gone to every continent, including the Antarctic. We've been through numerous travel trailers and so forth. So
he restored a travel trailer so that we could drive to Alaska. That was right after he was well enough.
Son.
This was right after he was, that's our travel trailer back there in the background. Right after he was well enough to, on crizotinib, we restored the travel trailer and we went to Alaska and back while we're on clinical trial. I mean, we had to be back on protocol wise and make it back in time. So, but travel we did.
We did 10,000 miles getting to Alaska.
Yes, 10,000 miles. It was great.
Yeah.
And there's our national park map in the house. And Pango, our last one we did in this year, we finished it off. And that's in the Samoa Islands, which is like halfway from Hawaii to Australia. So it's a bit of a journey. And we checked it off finally. So we did a good job on that one.
And Rhonda had asked this before, so this is why I know this question. Rhonda, I don't mean to steal it, but she had said that you started this adventure with the national parks pre-cancer.
Yes.
Then you're diagnosed, but you're so ill. So in that time before, was it like, when did you pick this back up and be like, oh, this still might be achievable? Like, when did you feel like, okay, I can continue this?
Crizotinib.
Right, crizotinib.
When I got crizotinib, I don't, we have a lot of people watching now, and they have probably different experiences with different ALK drugs. But with crizotinib, that was new for me. That was my first, and I tell you, it changed my life. I mean, it allowed me to get up off that couch, and in my book, I tell a story of how it's almost miraculous the way how effective it was and how quick. I mean, I was laying on my hospital bed, and I had all these technicians and doctors and everyone with clipboards watching me take these 3 little pills, and they gave them to me. And after about 15-20 minutes, I went in and literally threw up. I thought, well, I'm cooked now, so to speak. I walked out and they said, no, it's in your system now. And it was within 3-4 weeks. So I went back for my first checkup. Not that it completely cured my cancer by any means, but it really, I had what my wife described as in my lungs. It was like pleurisy, a little granules of cancer all throughout both lungs. So
he couldn't clear his throat. He couldn't cough. without having to have breakthrough pain medication at that time. And when he went in and had vomited and had dry heaves and didn't need a breakthrough pill, I was stunned. And I kept asking him if he was okay, to an annoyance of his. But he was okay from that point on. And then it was getting off of the pain medication, which we used. We had a really good friend doctor at the Cleveland Clinic who helped him with that. But and he takes no pain medication whatsoever, none. So crisantemum was the key to him starting back to living with terminal lung cancer.
And of course, lorlatinib is what I've been on for the last 6.5 years.
Yes.
And that's been a wonderful drug also. For me, it's been really easy to deal with. There is some side effects. There are some, I think there's some mental issues as far as anger management and so forth that sometimes you have to deal with.
Yeah.
But otherwise,
it's easy for him to take, as far as you don't have a timeline and medic or food issues. You can take it with or without, and you just have to figure out when's your best time that you think you want to take it. But it works very well for him. And
what dose are you on, Bill?
75.
75.
Did you start on 100 in the trial?
Yes, I did. Yeah. And Dr. Shaw was right away. She said, now this, this can go down. Don't, whenever you're ready, you feel are in need. And I thought, well, I'm going to hang on to it.
December of 2020, or November of 2016, he started the trial, and he went down, dosed down in October of 2018. So about 2 years.
Did you have progression at that time, Bill?
No progression.
No. The only reason I went down, I just felt I was getting angry and dealing with the anger thing. I thought that would be it.
Forgetting things and that kind of thing. And she thought,
I mean, when you switched to lorlatinib, when you were on brigatinib, did you have progression with brigatinib?
Not really. No.
No, we didn't.
Why did they do the switch?
Well, Dr. Shaw just said, we've got this new drug, and I think it may work better. I don't want to speak for her, but she said, I said, well, what do you think? And she said, I think you, and it was on a clinical trial at that time.
And we'd been on brigatinib for 2 years and 11 months, and she just felt it was really, brigatinib.
Okay.
And then we went to lorlatinib, 2 years and 11 months on brigatinib, and she just thought it would be better for him to make the switch. And so we did. So, yeah.
And you had said too, I'm going to pull back up some of your pictures in a second because they're so awesome. But someone had asked too about side effects, and you've tried all of these. And for those of you who are newer, crisantemum they don't use initially as much anymore. It doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier, which, as Bill and Connie explained, that's where his progression was to the brain. Not that we can't progress there anyway, but brigatinib, alectinib, lorlatinib, obviously. Heavier CNS protection. So anyway, symptoms, tell us, we are always a hot topic in the group that Rhonda and Jari and Christina are always trying to help us with, but they're always symptom management, right? Whether it's, you're going to all of these national parks, and some of us struggle with walking or movement or weight or blood pressure. So tell us about that, if you don't mind, managing those. I'll show some of your pictures too.
Yeah, I just didn't have that much of a reaction to like going back to brigatinib. That was a good drug for me.
That was a good drug for you.
And she just felt that
we always stick with food. I'm pretty sure. And that's another thing. It's been so long since we've done some of these. It's kind of hard, but we would try to manage time-wise and on your watch, make sure when you're traveling overseas that you have it with you. We never left it any place unless we could lock it up, and had food on the plane so that he could maintain that. He had diarrhea and constipation, both crisatinib that you have to manage when you're traveling, right? Always had a cooler of snacks and food in the car or with that what we could take on the planes and that sort of thing, so we could have it immediate. And we did a lot of even travel overseas and was very much encouraged to travel overseas by Dr. Shaw. And you can mention the travel clinic. The MGH has a travel clinic. They knew his whole background, and because we went to Africa, we went to some third world countries where they really are, there's concerns. And so you have to have shots and different things, and was totally encouraged. Dr. Shaw said, go, do what you can. And so we go to the travel clinic and they tell us what to do. They tell us how to keep ourselves safe, what not to eat overseas, bottled water, and make sure you buy it from a store and not someone outside on the street, right?
Right.
And
We saw some people in Egypt, young kids, they were selling water bottles, and you think, well, that's pretty safe. You have a water bottle. And then we found out real quick that they fill these water bottles in.
We see them picking up water bottles on the street and filling at a faucet and then selling them.
Yeah.
So you have to watch.
And not everyone did that or anything like that, but
Bill, did you change to the lesser from 100 to 75 milligram on lorlatinib because of like the cognitive effects? Did that help with that?
That was probably the best. And memory.
Yeah.
Those are two issues that I shared with Dr. Shaw, and boy, she was quick to say, because I was one of the first that was on lorlatinib, and so it was kind of new, and she knew. She said I would probably recommend that real quick. So that's what I did. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like, as somebody who knows, because I eat meals with you, I know that you're because a lot of people talk about the side effect of like weight gain. That's true with a lot of the targeted therapies, but definitely with lorlatinib. And I know that you, Bill, you're very conscious about what it is, that you eat, and you definitely watch your carb intake, and you eat a lot of salads and a lot of protein, and you definitely look at like portion sizes. So I think that's, why you didn't put on, like the weight, or why you've been able to maintain a healthy weight, because you are very conscious about, what you eat.
Right. And it's really hard, because you say that I did put on weight. I developed, especially during COVID.
2019, you were up to.
Yeah, I had put on about 30 pounds.
Yeah.
And then I was angry with myself.
Right.
And
it was.
And I kind of really started cutting out the carbs at that time. I tried to just cut back on everything in general, but I found out that the carbs was really packing it on my belly, and I didn't like that. So
small plate wasn't doing it, so we had to do something else. We're in the meat and potato area of the United States. That's what people around here always have. You always have to have some kind of starch on your plate with your protein and vegetables. So starch left the plate, and he has protein and salads now mainly. So
and that's really because you feel better, right? Like you said when we were talking before, Dr. Shaw, your local oncologist, all said, like, you can have sugar, you can eat what you want.
Right.
Yes.
But just be careful how much.
Well, what else do you do?
I exercise.
What's really helped him is swimming at the Y, swimming year round. Go in. We have a local Y, and they had this competition at the 2,000 mile, 200 mile, 200 mile club. So you get a T-shirt if you swim 200 miles. You can take however long you want, and so he's got 2 of those T-shirts. So that's what he does. And bike. We have bikes too.
Yeah, we're both big on biking. I was big on biking before I had my cancer. So that's probably one of the more devastating, sounds kind of minor, but it was one of the worst things that when I got my cancer, I couldn't hardly do anything. I had friends coming out and visiting me on their bikes, and I ended up, I had to sell my bikes. I gave them away because I couldn't even come close.
He didn't like seeing them.
Yeah, I didn't want to
'cause
see
you
them
couldn't
around.
buy 'em.
And that was really depressing. And boy, that's what, when I started on quercetin, my whole life turned around. I mean,
Yeah,
it saved my life, so to speak.
yeah. it did.
Well, I think one of the things we talk a lot about in this support group is the fact that where someone lives, like your zip code and the education of, you know, just like both Bill and Connie and Jeff and I, you know, live in rural Ohio, so all we have is a local and, you know, like you know, a lot of other members, you know, of our group, you know, zip code can definitely, you know, not all oncologists are created equal, and not all community centers or cancer centers are created, you know, equal. And yet it's not practical to think that, you know, you're going to be able to, you know, do your care, you know, and have to travel, you know, long distances. But I think, you know, what I learned through, you know, Bill and Connie, and, you know, it's like putting, you know, if you live in rural Ohio, definitely have your, you know, interview, find that local community oncologist who's willing, doesn't have an ego, doesn't have an issue with working with, you know, somebody like, you know, an ALK specialist like Dr. Shaw. And so Bill and Connie, Jeff and I, you know, whatever, we were able to, as long as things were stable, you're doing your lab work, you're doing your scans and stuff local every 3 months, you're doing your visits, and then you're forwarding that information, you know, to your, you know, specialist. And then the really great thing about having that plan B, your local community oncologist with a specialist, is that when you hit an area that, you know, whether or not it's knowledge about clinical trials or, you know, access to, you know, to different medications that they don't utilize on a daily basis. They don't have, you know, education on that. So it's like once you hit that rough spot, you can quickly engage your local oncologist with the specialist who's already up to date on everything, you know, to do with you. And then, you know, that person can then jump in and assist and help. You definitely don't want to get yourself into a position where, you know, you're struggling to put all those pieces together while you're also dealing with the anxiety and stress of, you know, like progression. I always feel like it's best to, you know, make sure that you know, that your team, you know, includes somebody who is keeping current on what's happening in ALK lung cancer.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
Excellent point.
Yeah.
Excellent point. Very good.
There was a question too, symptoms with progression. Like, did you, you know, we all, as we're like waiting, we keep getting our scans every 3 months, having some scanxiety. So then as you're waiting, you're wondering like, am I gonna, you know, start get a cough? Is it gonna be like when I first was diagnosed? Is there anything that's happened, do you feel like, that was, you're like, oh, this scan's not gonna be good, or anything that you can tell us?
That's a good question. I'm sure everyone has that anxiety, and I still have it. I call it scan anxiety. It is how I term it in the book and that. And I've heard a lot of stories and shared a lot of stories, but I know my first experience of really, I had anxiety every time. But then after a while, I kind of, with the quercetin, I kind of got into a lull, so to speak. But then I got that, you know, the dizziness started affecting me, and I knew something was happening. And so that's what got me into having a MRI and finding out that it had spread to my brain. And I was disappointed, to say the least, devastated, really. That I thought it was it.
Right.
And when like I mentioned earlier, when I went into Dr. Shaw's office, I said, well, you know, at least we've had a good run on quercetin and all that. She shared that there was a new drug that, And
There was
they
two
were,
or three of them.
the other two or three that crossed the blood
blood
barrier.
barrier.
That was a big thing.
Yeah,
That crossed the
Yeah.
blood barrier. Otherwise, I was healthy from neck on down. So,
right, right. He's,
I don't know how many of you that are on the call actually utilize the support group and also these, opportunities that the charity puts together, with like these Zoom calls, but I highly recommend, the importance of, connecting with someone, local. The relationship factor that Jeff and I have had with Bill and Connie now since 2017, has been, it's just a whole nother level. There's a reason why, groups like AA and stuff like that have, face to face, like support groups, and just feeling that camaraderie of being with another couple, with another caregiver, another survivor, that's walking in your shoes. I can't tell you how many times we were able to, help each other. Whether or not it was access to, Dr. Shaw, or access to community doctors we were utilizing. Jeff was actually on lorlatinib before, Bill. So it's like Bill was like, hey, Jeff, help me navigate this. What do we, and then another interesting thing to me was that Bill and Connie reached out to me to say, when Pfizer was actually ending the lorlatinib, trial, which was just last year, right? Like within the last 2 years.
yeah.
That was when, that was the first time ever that Bill and Connie was not on a clinical trial, and the targeted therapy was not being provided to them. So they were asking me on information about how to access, how to pay for, and
Yeah.
how to get Medicare and whatnot. So it's like in that 16-year, journey, it's only just been in the last couple of years that he wasn't on a clinical trial where the medication was being, provided to them. But I highly recommend to, connect with, find those people in your, area, start your own, small, group and gathering, and it's been, it's really been great to be able to have each other, and be able to have the camaraderie along the journey. Yeah.
Yes.
And for sure, and Mark and I talked after we did our little pre-meeting the other day too, to say how fortunate the four of you are too, with such strong care partners. And I think that is amazing. And not everybody has somebody maybe that's involved, or their support looks different, which is great. But I think too, Rhonda, you pointed out something so important, whether you're involved in the support group, which is such a lifeline. For sure, for me, that's what led me to get involved. And then also these ALK talks that Mark started, and then now has built a team of us. ALK chat that's on Wednesdays with Dana, or there's all different healing arts groups. So we know that not everybody's support system looks the same. And this is an amazing combination, and I love it and get chills. But there's no reason for anybody to go through this alone. Like, we're all here, we're all there's nothing like talking to somebody else in the same boat as us, right, that has these same twisted thoughts sometimes that you're all guilty of, because they all go through our minds. But it's then having somebody say, like, okay, I feel that, I've been there, now what's the next step, and what's our next plan, and what are we going to do? So make sure you look through the email that you got telling you about this talk, so that you can that there are resources out there. Okay, before we take some more questions, also Mark had a great question the other day, and he said, okay, so like, why write a book? So here you are, you're traveling around, you're doing your parks, which I want to show over to those photos, but then and I'm so glad you wrote a book, because again, this is such a great example for all of us, and tells us, we're in that dark hole, climb out of it, keep living. But I love that. But how did you go about that? How did this all happen? Tell us.
Okay, it I didn't really, I never intended to write a book. But where it came from was that, first of all, my wife takes meticulous notes. So every place we were at, every conference, doctor's office, every doctor visit, she had all that written down. And at the same time, and I'm sure all the cancer patients out there that are listening can appreciate this. There's nights where you absolutely can't sleep. Your mind's involved with a lot of things, or you just have pain, discomfort. And those are the times that I try to get my mind off of it. And I had an iPad and I just started pecking away and telling my story. Sometimes, excuse my language, I was bitching about something that happened or someone that came and did something. But that was just my way of, I mean, we're talking 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, whatever, you know, and whether it be in Boston, one of our times, I stayed in Boston over a period of time for my treatments and also my brain
treatment,
surgery. My brain surgery when I had the cancer removed. We've taken kind of a side note, but Connie and I have driven from Ohio to Boston 93 times.
Right.
And so we know that way by heart, so to speak. And it's a round trip of what, 1,700 miles? 1,700 miles. So, but that I've gone through like 2 or 3 cars, you know how that is. But we've no complaints whatsoever. But
well, I have to say with this photo up here, I just want to let people know. Hopefully this ALKtALK has inspired you to purchase the book, which will also, like we said, go towards funding, ALK research. But this story or this photo there with the camel, I'm not going to tell you about it. You have to read the book. But there's a great story that goes along with this photo in the book. Yeah.
I had to be really careful. I didn't want it to be all gloom and doom, and it isn't. I mean, I'm living with cancer, so that's positive by all means. But there's a lot of things I've kind of shared that was a negative. Some of my experiences, and everyone reading the book will have those experiences of some sort, I'm sure. But I want to throw in about our travels too, because that's been part of our life for sure.
That helped us. That helped.
Yeah, that helped get through
that helps him in particular.
And I think until Jeff and I met Bill and Connie, I think it's really easy for a cancer family to focus more on what we've lost, on the negative, on the being scared, being fearful, stop planning, stop living. It's just like something that I think a lot of people do. And I think I hadn't really met someone like Bill and Connie that were still, right now they're in the planning stages to go to Switzerland. A lot of people are thinking, gosh, I can't plan. I can't that far ahead. I don't know how things are going to be. And so it really limits you, on being able, to live. And I just remember that after Jeff and I met with them and we started hanging out together, we just did that whole mental mind switch into, let's stop, let's be like, Bill and Connie, let's live, let's plan, let's just try and be, as normal as possible between, scans and stability and progression. And so I think that's a really, it was a really great switch for us. And I can remember, when we did make that switch from focusing so much on what we had lost and what we no longer had to, thinking about, I mean, at that time, Jeff bought, a new combine that he'd been putting off. We ended up buying a retirement home in Florida. I mean, there were so many things that you guys, inspired, us to do by, your focus on, doing all that you can and looking at it from a more positive, mindset.
And it can be little things, right? Like Dr. Laura Petrillo a palliative care doctor says, buy the shoes, or
Yes.
get Botox. That's not her words. I'm just saying, sometimes we get lung cancer and we're like, should I still go to the dentist? I mean,
Yeah.
But
it's right, Bill, it's a
Your
true
hip re-
thing.
Yes.
Yeah, I had my hip replaced.
Right. He had his hip replaced. The airplane that you saw there, that was in Alaska, and he was in misery because he needed a hip replacement. And we got it done. So, yes.
I even asked one of the nurses. I said, at that time, it was what, 2 years ago. So I was like
it was
70,
2019.
73.
2019.
Okay. Anyway, I was up in age, and I'm thinking, will they even let me do this?
Right.
And boy, the nurse straightened me out real quick. She said, they will, and if they don't, you let me know. Kind of thing.
Yes, they cannot stop you from having a hip replacement.
Yeah. So, and I was good, and it was a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and it's a challenge, but you move on. There's insurance for trips. Buy insurance.
Yeah, be sure to do that.
And we've had to use it. We've had to cancel. When he had his brain mets, we had a trip plan, had to cancel and use our insurance. And we had all the paperwork there, so that it wasn't so hard to plan it for the next time. We just did it the next couple months later. So
I definitely think that their story, not only what they shared tonight, but in reading the book, you definitely understand that, even though there's biomarker testing, genetic testing, that there's targeted therapies, there's all these clinical trials. If it hadn't been for Linnea and Dr. Shaw, being willing to, do a news story and the chance that Bill saw it, and then him saying, maybe that could be me. And he made a phone call, that started this journey, and all along the way, he questioned, I don't think I need whole brain radiation. Let's go back and talk with Doc. He's definitely,
In the driver's
definitely one of the main reasons why, he's still here 16 years later is because because some of chance, right? The chance, and then obviously being his own advocate. And I think the importance too of the fact that Linnea was willing to go out and share her story. Had she not, been brave enough to want to talk about her story, she lived in Boston. Had she not shared the story, Bill would have never known, that was possible.
Right.
yeah, I think you're right.
And also, I do want to add, before we grab some more of the questions in here, that summit participants are going to be blessed with the book from Pfizer, so we can thank them. You should be getting a code. The logistics are still being worked out, I was told Thursday. But if you attended the summit, then you are going to be getting a code to get the book during November, which is Lung Cancer Awareness Month. So stay tuned. You'll be getting.
So that is something that Jeff and I have done advocacy work with Pfizer for a long time, and I think you shared that my my husband passed in May. And so because of all of our advocacy work with Pfizer, I actually approached, they do a donation. They want to do a donation in Jeff's honor. And so I actually asked Pfizer if at that time the summit was just getting ready to happen. And so I thought that might be an easy way to put, that we could do the donation in Jeff's honor by purchasing Bill's book. And so we did talk with the charity then, and talk with Pfizer, and and we're working out the logistics on that right now. But that donation of that book cost for those that attended in person at the summit will be in honor of my husband Jeff. So we wanted to do that and support Bill and Connie and their book, and we just felt that was just a beautiful connection between our relationship, the book, and advocacy. So
Now, that's well said, Rhonda, and what a wonderful, not that the book is that important, but just I know Jeff worked closely with Spike, both of you did, and it's quite an honor for them to do that.
Yeah.
That's great, really is.
Yeah.
That is, let's see if there's anything else. Anybody have any more questions here? We talked about alectinib. Somebody did mention that a research nurse is always a great resource for sure. A nurse navigator can definitely help with that. Or somebody working directly with the clinical trial. So, your mutation, and we talked about this the other day. Do you know, Bill, possibly, do you have the TP53 mutation, or do you know what variant you are?
No, we don't.
You know, we did know, and
From our understanding, it really has never changed. What went to the brain was the same that he had in his chest. So his has always stayed about the same. Yeah.
we
Okay.
got to put it up, to be honest
Yeah.
with you.
We don't have it in front of us. So
I know we all want the secret sauce, as Mark called it, right? We all want to know, like, how do we become so fortunate? But I think the big thing too is not wasting time. Like,
Yeah.
whether we can catch up, and we all want to grow up and be Bill and Connie, but yeah, exactly. But making those plans and keep living, and but yeah, that would be good information if you ever find.
If you'd like for us, we can find that out.
Yes.
How we would post it, but we'll be more than glad.
No, that would be awesome. And then
I'll just share that with you then.
Yeah.
And you
okay.
can do.
Or you could post it, however.
Okay.
I know how to find him, so anybody just keep these questions coming. Rhonda will go knock on his door.
Yeah,
Right.
No, this has been so awesome, and this is, we said we're going. Mark always likes to say that ALKtALK is a fireside chat, and in our little group, I said, okay, how about we're like at a end of summer bonfire here. We're all roasting your marshmallows. This has been so great to have you guys kick this off. You're having wonderful comments here about how brave you are, and everyone is finding you so inspiring and so much encouragement. It is amazing. And still, I also just thinking about how you were sent home.
Yeah.
Right.
Sent home with end of life care, pain management. And then you heard Linnea's message, and what I think is so fabulous too is then you kind of paid that forward now by sharing your own message,
Right.
Simple.
I was able
I
to
did.
I was able to meet Linnea a couple times when we were with Dr. Shaw, and she was also when we were going to Boston at that time, and I would run by passing, and she was an amazing lady, very, very, very articulate, and she'd say what she felt, and so you knew exactly where you stood with her, and I think a lot of people liked that, and I did. I appreciate that. So yeah, it's a great person.
Rhonda,
Yeah, I did see there was a question in there about how to, some suggestions on how to connect with like local people. But I would say, like I do that a lot, like just like reading like the introductions. You can definitely do a search inside of the support group. We also have, there is some people log themselves or record themselves as being, like where they live, like on a map. I think Dana just posted that link there.
Map for them.
And also the the admin where we can help you with that too inside of there. But when but I think you could also go to like your local cancer center. You could also ask them, are they treating any other people with ALK lung cancer? And even though that could be HIPAA, you could give your information to the doctor to say, if you have any of your patients that would be interested in like meeting with me. Sometimes you can even start with just attending like what might be or creating one a local lung cancer support group yourself at like, organizing one inside, and just, you can even expand outside of, ALK, and then maybe even find someone, find someone that way. But I know we shared our story, and we've done a lot of advocacy local, in terms of sharing our story. And so, if you share your story, odds are you, are going to get contacted. We ended up meeting lots of other, people that way too, just by, sharing our story.
Yeah. And Bill has shared earlier on when he had positive results with crisatinib, MGH had him share his story several times with some news media, and people reach out to you when they see it shared. And that was one of the purposes of the book as
Right.
well, to spread the word. It's amazing though, like Rhonda knows, he looks so normal here and does yard work and mows grass and swims and stuff, that most of the people here in town, in our community, even though they know us and knew he had lung cancer, they almost all of them thought he was cured. And so they're shocked. When the book came out, it was in the local paper, people have come up to him and said, I didn't realize, they didn't realize at all.
I don't want to interrupt, but one of the funny stories was that when I was going through all this, I left my oncologist here in home and went to Dr. Shaw, and we started getting on crisatinib and so forth. I started really feeling good. And then I got these brain mets. So I went back to the hospital to have my local hospital to have a brain scan. And of course, my local doctor was in there. And before that, I happened to walk into his office and had an appointment with him. And I guess he didn't pay much attention to his appointments, but I walked in and he literally fell against the wall. And I walked up and I said, how you doing? And he said, I thought you were dead. And he said, I had no idea. He said, I hadn't heard from you. And of course, I hadn't corresponded with him because
6 months after you started crisatinib.
Right.
Yeah.
And he went back to his medical journals and went through it. And there was just one little story, brief line on this 6,000 page booklet he had of the crisatinib trial. So there was no way he would know it. It wasn't that he just, now they know, but it took a while.
He said he would have never found that study ever, because he treats all kinds of cancers in his office, and he would never have recommended a phase 1 study for him clear to Boston. And so he was stunned, and he actually shook Bill's hand and just pumped it up and down. You just added years to my life. Thank you. Thank you. So
yeah, it's kind of neat
like
story.
We loved him. He was a great guy. He tried really hard to help us. So, that's all you can ask for, plus what you do yourself. So, yeah.
Well, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your story with all of us, and that here tonight, and then in general, taking the time to write the book that will be such an invaluable resource for, anyone just diagnosed or in a hard spot or just needing motivation, I think, for years to come. That is so amazing. And I'm so happy that you were here with us. And Rhonda, all of you too. This is Rhonda, who I know that Mark said it and we've repeated it, but keeping everything flowing and organized in the support group is not an easy job. And the three of them do it so fabulously, that there's so much support and wisdom and research information constantly floating around, and they manage to keep us all on track there. So we're so very grateful for that too. So and if you're not on social media, have some, it can be a niece, a nephew, somebody else that can help you access that site also. So if you're not, so if this roles were reversed, I know my husband would not be, like similar to what Rhonda had said, like I don't think that my husband would be on there either. So, but It is an invaluable resource, but if that's not the route you want to go to, you can always still go to ALKpositive.org and find our Healing Arts calendar on there. Maybe that's a class that you want to join. There could be something in there for support, or the ALK Talk. So we have another ALK Talk coming up in 2 weeks. So I hope you will all join us for that. It's discussing a new trial. Dr. Patel from Colorado will be on. So that will be great information. And then we will have an LCAM kickoff, getting you all ready for that. That's another project Rhonda's worked on for years. In October. So we have the big lineup. Reach out to us at any time with different ideas, things that you want to see in the future. We love that and value all of your feedback. So at any time you can email us or message us. I think that's it. Also, Colin is going to be making another appearance too, to encourage us all to do the ALK study. The longitudinal, I say it wrong every time, study that, we all want to know the secret sauce. Like, Bill, what are you doing to keep your boyish wit and longevity? So we all need to do this study to say, does it truly make a difference what you eat? Does it matter if you exercise? It just seems like not, but as we're completing the study, that's what all of that information goes to. So if you would all like to unmute and thank Bill and Connie and Rhonda, that would be fabulous. And then we'll see you all in 2 weeks at the same time, same place.
Thank
Bill and
you.
Connie. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Bill and
you.
Connie.
Thank
Your
you.
work is wonderful.
Thank
Absolutely
you,
wonderful.
everyone.
Thank you
Thank
so
you very
much.
much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good
Thank you.
stuff.
Thank you.